Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bruce Walker, and I am Dean of the Trulaske College of Business. Thank you for joining us today for another distinguished alumni lecture. My two usual reminders: ask you to stay until the end of today's session, and we will conclude well before 5 p.m. for any of you who have commitments at that hour. And two, as I just did, check your cell phone, make sure it's on vibrate if you would, or turned off. Once again, we're grateful to be able to welcome a successful and distinguished MU alumnus to present today's talk as part of our renowned, I say that immodestly, what I think is a renowned speaker series. One of the strategic priorities of the Trulaske College of Business, as some of you know, is collaboration, referring to joint activities between our college and our academic colleagues when opportunities present, and of course between our college and the business community. We always want these collaborations to be win-win. In fact, I just concluded a meeting with the provost, and he told me how pleased the Columbia Chamber of Commerce was with one of these collaborations, namely MBA Student Consulting Project on a project identified by the Chamber. So our students got some valuable experience conducting a consulting project, and the Chamber of Commerce got some worthwhile information. Win-win. We always hope that our partners, be they academic colleagues or alumni or companies, benefit in significant ways as well. And those benefits could range from perhaps a greater likelihood of recruiting top students to the personal gratification for an alumnus or an alumna of sharing his or her expertise and experience with faculty members and students in our college. So as you can see, collaboration initiative is very important to us. The speaker series is critical, and the Distinguished Alumni Lecture is a key component in that. We're very proud of the prestigious list of speakers, maybe I should say the list of prestigious and renowned speakers who have come in as parts of these programs. Some of the recent participants in the Distinguished Alumni Lecture include Denny Shelton, somebody else from Dallas, the founder and former chairman and CEO of Triad Hospital System, and also Ace Greenberg, the chairman of the executive committee of Bear Stearns, who came in last fall via video conference. If you desire, check the college's website for a complete list of previous participants. Of course, I always love to have you check our website because there's a lot of good news on it. Now to today's speaker, an MU alumnus. Ralph Babb is the chairman and CEO of Comerica Incorporated and Comerica Bank. And as the program states, Mr. Babb joined Comerica in 1995 as executive vice president and chief financial officer. Before moving to Detroit, he lived and worked in St. Louis, including a number of years in executive capacity with Mercantile Bank Corporation. I've had the pleasure of visiting with Mr. Babb first in St. Louis and then once in Detroit, and we're delighted he's back on campus today. We've been hoping this would occur, and he has, as you would suspect, an incredibly busy schedule, so we're grateful that he's been able to come to Columbia. Besides the lecture, Mr. Babb made time for lunch with Provost Foster and several faculty members. And of course, just prior to this session, he met with the MBA students, a group of MBA students. When we're done with Mr. Babb's talk, I know he wants to have Q&A. We'll have that, and then we'll adjourn for a brief reception across the hall in room 105. As you surmise, or as you probably know, Comerica recently relocated its corporate headquarters from Detroit to Dallas. And to tell us more about this critically important decision, perhaps about the process leading up to to the decision, maybe how Comerica handled the announcement in Detroit, and certainly the business implications of this relocation. Would you join me in welcoming Ralph Babb? Mr. Babb. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and good afternoon, everybody. I can't tell you how great it is to be back on the Mizzou campus. I was trying to remember how long it's been, and I decided I'm too old and I won't think about that anymore as to how long it's been. But it's really neat to be back. I'm especially pleased to be here in Cornell Hall. Harry is an old friend as well, and certainly the home of the Robert J. Trulaske College of Business. This is a great and significant location here at the college, and is great that we have that here. You should be proud of the fact that you're able to advance your education in such a fine facility, as I just mentioned, surrounded by the faculty and staff who share your passion for educational excellence. Missouri's College of Business has a great reputation around the country, and that's very important. Whether you're an MBA student or an undergrad, you've come to the right place. The program here is nationally recognized, thanks in large part to the efforts of Dean Walker, who, along with many others, are working hard to ensure you are provided with a world-class education. Of course, it's not just the College of Business that has earned recognition nationally. The strong showing of the football team this past season showed the nation another source of Missouri pride. It was my good fortune to be able to lead a parade through the streets of downtown Dallas on December 31st, celebrating the participants of the Cotton Bowl, including the Missouri Tigers. I wore a gold sweater that day to be sure everyone along the parade route and those watching on television knew which team meant something special to me. And it was interesting as I walked along with all of the Arkansas fans and the Missouri fans, and people would look, and then they would think about it, and then it was quite fun going back and forth with the various fans. It was a great day, great weather, and I think everybody had a very good time. I got to lead the parade because the name of the parade is the Comerica Bank New Year's Parade. And that's one of the things that we do in the communities we serve, is we become a part of what's going on in those communities. Our sponsorship was the direct result of the move that was mentioned earlier several months before, when we moved our corporate headquarters from Detroit to Dallas. This afternoon, I would like to take you behind the scenes and share with you the key drivers that led us to make the important decision and how it will accelerate the growth of Comerica. To understand where we are today requires a quick look at the history of our company and the years leading up to that day in March 2007, when we announced our headquarters relocation. Comerica had been based in Detroit since 1849. We were known then as the Detroit Savings Fund Institute and catered to the many shipping interests on the Detroit River. Many name changes, and about 100 years later, the bank was called Detroit Bank and Trust. In 1979, the bank entered Florida for the first time under a trust charter, and in 1981 opened an office in Boca Raton. By the 1980s, the bank leaders were already looking ahead to the day when banks would be able to establish branches in other states. They wanted a bank name that would enable it to have a broad appeal in markets around the country. They selected the name Comerica in 1982. In 1987, Comerica opened its first loan production office in Texas. A year later, Comerica purchased Grand Bank shares, which was the first of many acquisitions in the Lone Star State. Comerica made its first California acquisition in 1991 with the purchase of Plaza Commerce Bancorp. Our acquisition of Imperial Bank in 2001 continued to build on our presence in California while also providing us an entree into Arizona. Many have referred to our footprint as a patchwork quilt, with Michigan, California, Texas, Arizona, and Florida as the main sections. We also have select businesses in other cities and states, as well as Canada. We also have representative offices in Monterrey, Mexico, and Shanghai, China. We have a leading retail franchise in Michigan, as well as a strong business banking operation. But outside of Michigan, we were known primarily as a business bank. Only about 8% of our loans are to consumers. 92% are to businesses with a focus in the middle market. In 2004, we began to focus on growth and balance. For example, we developed a 3-year plan to open 50 new banking centers in strong growth markets. We made progress on that plan each year, and by the end of 2006, we had opened 60 new banking centers, up from our original target of 50, and that expansion plan continues today. As our franchise outside of Michigan grew, we consolidated banking charters and developed nationwide products to provide more uniform and consistent approaches to all of our markets. We also strengthened our focus on cross-selling in order to take advantage of opportunities available to our customers in our business bank and our retail bank and our wealth and institutional management division. We are one of the top 25 banks in the country today. It was toward the end of 2006 when our board and executive management first considered the prospect of relocating our headquarters. Relocation is rare in banking. Other than in the cases of a merger, which we've all seen, but there are examples in other industries. Some of the more high-profile locations, including Boeing in 2001, which moved its long-term headquarters from Seattle to Chicago. That same year, Kinko's relocated its headquarters from Ventura, California, to Dallas. Fluor Corporation relocated its headquarters from Southern California to Dallas-Fort Worth area in 2006. And in 1991, UPS moved its corporate headquarters from Connecticut to Atlanta, Georgia. Going back even further, Exxon was a company that relocated its corporate headquarters from New Jersey to Dallas in 1975. Many of you may remember Southwestern Bell, SBC, moved its headquarters from St. Louis as well to San Antonio in Texas. So companies have been known to blaze new trails by relocating their corporate headquarters. What about Comerica? Over the years, the contribution of our high-growth markets to our company's overall performance has increased dramatically. For example, in 1997, only 27% of our average loans were generated in our fast-growth markets. By the end of 2006, half of our average loans were generated in those same markets. In 1997, only 27% of our average deposits were generated in those markets. And by the end of 2006, we were almost, on average, at the halfway mark. Another telling statistic was the fact that in 1997, we had 90 banking centers in the Texas, Western, and Florida markets, and by the end of 2006, we had 152 banking centers in those same markets. When I use banking center, we have a little bit different definition than banks that you see normally, and you refer to a bank branch. A banking center to us is a location based on our model that has access to a focused number of small business, middle market, and affluent individuals and retail. And I use the example a lot that if you and I were going to open a small bank, where would we want to locate it? And we use that as the way we locate our banking centers. And we have all of our lines of business focus on those banking centers as to how much business they will contribute to them. Because of that, the accretion in those banking centers we find is faster than what's in the market today. And we also see that we don't need the same density that other institutions do who have a little bit different strategy. Our high-growth markets were becoming more important contributors to our company's net income. In 1997, the markets outside of Michigan contributed about 30%. By the end of 2006, nearly 50% of our net income was generated in markets outside of Michigan. Relocation was really the logical next step in our strategy to accelerate growth, and the decision was bolstered by some compelling demographic and economic information. One of the things that I say a lot is that a bank really is a microcosm of the communities it serves. That means a lot of things, but for shareholders, that means the faster growing markets you're in, the faster growing the banks grow in those markets, the better opportunity it is to have higher growth for the shareholders longer term. According to the U.S. Census Bureau projections, and if you go out on the Census Bureau website, I think you can find these numbers, 2/3 of all Americans will live in the South and West by 2030. So in other words, across the southern United States is where 2/3 of the population will be. 30% will be in 3 states. Have a guess what states those are? California, Texas, and Florida. And again, thinking back to what I said earlier, where the population growth is and the speed of population growth is where I believe the economic growth will be, which is very important from a bank longer term. Arizona, in those same terms, is projected to go from a population that currently is 20th in 2000 to 10th in 2030. Such projections fueled our belief that the best opportunities for future growth of Comerica lie in these fast-growing markets. We believe that in order to accelerate our growth going forward, our executive management team should be positioned in a more central location with greater accessibility to all of our markets. Dallas was the logical choice. We had been in the market for nearly 20 years at that point. Moving our headquarters there would give us greater proximity to all of our markets. The additional oversight we could provide and the additional resources we could deploy, such as calling officers and relationship managers, would help to accelerate our growth. Whereas Michigan's population has declined over the years, Texas continues to enjoy one of the highest population growth rates in the country. With a statewide population of more than 23 million and growing, we believe Texas, the second most populous state in the nation, offers tremendous opportunities for us going forward. In addition, we believe that the vibrant and diversified Texas economy would be particularly helpful to us as we seek to continue attracting and retaining talented employees. Based on the data from the International Monetary Fund, Texas is the 10th largest economy in the world, with a gross state product of nearly $1 trillion. We certainly took that into consideration in our decision to relocate our corporate headquarters to Texas. Dallas is also the home to more than 10,000 corporate headquarters. That's the largest concentration in the United States. Another factor we took into consideration was that Comerica would become the largest bank holding company, headquartered in Texas. We believe that positions us quite well in terms of being a competitive differentiator as we work to enhance existing customer relationships and building new ones. And in effect, since we have moved down there, we have seen opportunities for new business, and especially the warm Texas welcome that was given us, and doors opened that weren't open in the past. Not that they were shut, it was just easier to open. And the enthusiasm of having a large headquartered bank, similar to what Texas had in the late 80s, before the energy crisis that changed the banking structure in Texas. Dallas and Texas are business friendly and would provide us incentives to partially offset some of the costs associated with the move of our headquarters. But I would underline business friendly. They are very active in making sure that the environment is appropriate and that they are actively looking always to attract new businesses and new jobs, which is very important for the overall economy of Texas and a very strong strength in that environment. So armed with all that information, we made the decision to relocate our corporate headquarters, and we announced it on March 6, 2007. Texas Governor Rick Perry welcomed Comerica to the state at a press conference that afternoon in downtown Dallas. It was held at the Nasher Sculptor Center, named after the late Ray Nasher, who was a key figure on our Texas advisory board for many years. To some observers, our headquarters relocation announcement was an important next step in making downtown Dallas a premier financial center once again. And what I refer to there is, at one time, I'm told in articles that I've read, that there was actually more AAA banks in Texas than there were in New York. I assume that's correct. There were a lot of very strong, large banks there with very active boards and managements. They were very active in the community and what was going on in the community. And people remember that and have a very positive attitude toward having large financial institutions and financial institutions involved in the community. An editorial in the Dallas Morning News stated that a healthy downtown Dallas is critical to the region's growth, and Comerica's move is a high-profile commitment to both. We certainly appreciated that recognition and hope our decision will be a catalyst for continued downtown growth. A story last month in the Dallas Morning News mentioned that more suburban firms are already beginning to move downtown, and that billions of dollars spent in the central business district in recent years have apparently caught the notice of companies. Expanding and relocating companies increased office occupancy in downtown Dallas by almost 200,000 square feet in 2007. This was the biggest net increase since 1999. We are pleased to be a part of the resurgence of downtown Dallas. The environment in Dallas is very friendly, and that is important. When you think about the thought process that we went through of not only the economic thought process, the business-friendly process, the housing availability, the schools, the friendliness, the attractiveness of the business community and others to wanting us to be there, that is not only important to us, but it's important as you look to grow the atmosphere and the state going forward. It is a tremendous strength that has developed from a time in the late 80s and early 90s when there was some significant issues in the economy that today have been transformed in one of the most diversified economies in the country. That's important because in the ups and downs in the economic environment that we see, we're looking at one right now, in my opinion, it is important because of the resilience that's in that economy. That was also very important as we considered things, but will also be very important as others consider the same decision in the future. Our corporate headquarters relocation affects about 200 employees over 3 years, including some open positions. We have moved about 100 to date. In the summer and fall of 2007, our executive management team moved to our new headquarters building, which is on Main Street in the heart of downtown. The 60-story building is considered a downtown landmark and is a distinctive part of the evening skyline. And it was built for one of the banks I talked about. And the actual floors that we're taking were built for that bank and have been there. And so it was natural for us to look at that space, and we're quite pleased to have it. But it also carries, as I just mentioned, the remembrance and the fond memories of the banks that were there in the previous times. Since our relocation, we've seen some good results, particularly in Texas. In our most recent quarterly earnings report, average loans increased 28% on an annualized basis in our Texas market. Average deposits in the Texas market were up about 1% compared to the prior quarter. And we've had good loan growth in our other high-growth markets as well. We have continued to pursue our growth strategy without being distracted by many of the issues that have affected the banking industry, such as those associated with collateralized debt obligations, structured investment vehicles, and subprime mortgages, since our business model is a bit different. As a result, we are able to focus on building positive momentum with our growth strategy. Since relocating our corporate headquarters, we also have stepped up our community involvement in Texas, particularly in Dallas. In addition to the parade sponsorship I mentioned at the outset of my remarks, we became the presenting sponsor as an example of the Dallas Summer Musicals, which brings Broadway shows to the city on a year-round basis. We also formed a Community Development Advisory Council in Dallas, a group of 10 community leaders that meets quarterly to assist us in making sure we are plugged in to what the community needs. Our executive management team is becoming engaged and involved in the local community in Dallas. We also back that up with resources to support civic and nonprofit organizations. We take our civic and our social responsibility seriously at Comerica. We think that's a Comerica difference. We encourage all of our people to be involved in the community and be involved in what they want to be involved in. And we'll support that because the health of the community, as I mentioned earlier, is very important to the health of the organization going forward. And people that are involved in the community where they want to be involved, that's part of being happy and having balance in their lifestyles as well. That's how we strengthen relationships in the communities where we live and work. What's in store for 2008? Throughout the year, we will continue to advance our strategy, continuing our focus on growth and balance. Our expansion plans for 2008 include the addition of 32 new banking centers, all of them in our high-growth markets, including 12 in Texas. In regard to other initiatives in 2008, we will be helping the U.S. Department of the Treasury implement a debit card services program for Social Security recipients. You may have read the Wall Street Journal article which mentioned that Comerica was selected to serve as the financial agent for the program based on our experience and expertise as a prepaid card issuer for a number of state government programs. We also are launching a strategic initiative aimed at sustainability. We have made a commitment to conduct our business and operations in a way that enhances the well-being of people and the communities in which they live and protects and preserves the environment for future generations. In closing, there are a lot of different kinds of banks competing in America today. There are a lot of choices for investors in financial services stocks. We work hard to occupy a special place in that marketplace. And we like the space we occupy because it gives us a strong platform from which we can generate quality growth and attractive long-term return to our shareholders while exceeding the expectations of our customers. That place we occupy is one that requires skills that can only be honed by patient experience, the banking skills needed to serve America's entrepreneurs, the small businesses, and middle market companies, and their owners and managers, who are over the long haul the drivers of the American difference. We try to build a community banking atmosphere. And what I mean by that is it's very important for all of our people, which today is 11,000, to feel like they are a part and a very important part of the organization. We hold meetings several times a year in all the markets and invite all of our employees, and our employees can ask any question they would like. And I really want to hear what's working well, what's not working well, things we could do differently, and what would make their job more easy and better for the customer. And it's amazing the things that we learn from having those kinds of interchanges, the things that you kind of shake your head and say, I can't believe I didn't think about that. And we call them owner meetings so that everybody takes ownership in the company, and like a small community bank, that where if you needed a person to help you with a customer, call on a customer, visit a customer, whatever it may be, or a prospective customer, you'd walk down the hall, that today they feel comfortable picking up the phone or sending you an email saying, you know, if you'd give this customer a call, we just made a proposal, or if you could stop by this customer the next time you're in town, it would make a difference. That's the kind of culture that we want. I get calls from people throughout the organization to do just that, or emails where they see something that's good, or they see something that they think could be better. And that's important. And being owners and everybody taking responsibility for it is the kind of culture that I think differentiates us longer term. If you're competing just in a normal basis where it is purely the product, then scale is a big part of that. And we want that added relationship part, and to do business with that customer set that really value that relationship. And that has been very successful for us. I would like to thank you again for the hospitality, and it's been great to be back here. And I would really like to kind of stop there and see if there are things that you would like to talk about or you would like me to address, and I'd be happy to do that.
Very good. Thank you, Ralph. Indeed, we do have time for questions and answers. If you would make your question concise and direct, that would be great. We'll give you a chance for follow-up. And hope that everyone would stay until the end of the Q&A. So we have a question.
Thank you for being here. From a purely economic perspective, how do you think recent trends in immigration will affect specifically Dallas, but also the entire state of Texas?
You know, I'm not sure I really have a feel for the answer to that question. There's been a lot of discussions on immigration, and we know that we have a very positive immigration, and we have the right laws and other things in place. I was talking earlier and I was talking to an economist who said, or had heard from an economist in Houston as an example, we're short of people. We have a lot of jobs. And I think as long as it's done the correct way, and if you think back through our history, that was a very important part of who we are. And that will be a very important part of who we are going forward. It just needs to be done the right way. I don't have an answer for what the right way is. I've not really studied that. But I have the utmost of confidence we will figure that out appropriately.
Good.
That answer your...
Well, we have another question way toward the top. Mr. Babb, let me insert one here. Did you put the relocation up for bid in Texas or even in the Metroplex between Dallas and Fort Worth? Or had you chosen Dallas?
We made the decision. We did not put it up for bid. It was one that we went through, as I mentioned earlier, and it was putting up the markets where we were and looking at what made the most sense for the reasons that I indicated. And once we made the decision, that's where we went.
So then, did you go in and seek different types of relocation incentives from Dallas?
We looked at what was available overall as we were going through the process, but it wasn't a key decision driver. It was part of it, but not the key.
Okay.
Yeah. The key for us is it was centrally located. The economics were there. We'd been there 20 years. We have a team that was headquartered there already that ran the state for us. And both Houston and Austin and Dallas are great markets. And the central location, and when you added everything up, it became the right choice.
Yeah, and I just persist on this because you indicated all of the relocations that have occurred, and then the implications of both where you're moving from and where you're moving to. So it seems like a rather specific decision for a corporation, but it's really huge. Right?
It is. It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And it's very important for Michigan, too. And let me explain what I mean by that. The faster we grow as an organization, our back rooms are in Michigan. So that creates jobs in Michigan as well. And that's why, as I talked about earlier, banks are going to grow because of the economies they're in. So having a diversified footprint in high-growth markets today and the Midwest is very important. There was a time when the Midwest was doing quite well and the other markets weren't doing as well. Now today, I don't think that risk is there quite like it was in the fast-growing markets for the diversity reasons that I talked about earlier, because those, both California and Texas, have very diversified economies, even though right now California is certainly feeling the softness in the housing market, especially in the out of the kind of Orange County, San Francisco markets.
Okay, good. Next question.
Yes. What is the, you kind of talked on this a little bit with your last comment, but what is the sense of social responsibility? Could you elaborate on that Comerica has to the state of Michigan, given that it originated there, and given the lack of economic prosperity there? Could you just elaborate a little bit more on what Comerica is doing to alleviate some of the serious economic burdens that are there?
We are, as we have been and still are, very involved in that market and in supporting the looking at through the business community in the various organizations as to what we need to do to diversify that economy longer term. And the people that we have there and the management team that we have there, we very carefully transitioned for all the responsibilities that we had on the senior team that was moving to making sure that our senior team staying was moving into those particular spots, and that we were continuing our support to both the community as well as the diversification that we were looking for, or that needs to be looked for going forward. So we're very supportive, as we are in all the communities where we are. As I mentioned earlier, the health of banking organizations really flows to the health of the communities. And we have the senior team in Michigan today is people that have been with us 20, 25 years. They understand, they know the community, and they are very dedicated to that community, as we continue to be. It's a very important market for us. We have 7,000 people there as well.
So short term, there will be 200 positions moving to Dallas, but
Right.
over time, there will be more positions created in Detroit, in the back rooms for Comerica, back office, because of the growth that you're able to accelerate. Is that a fair summary?
We keep growing. That's where our back rooms are. That's where they will be. And that, now, you have a plus and a minus there. The plus is the faster we grow, the more need there is. The minus there is technology today quickly eliminates some of the type of things that we had to do by individual and with people before. So you have both moving. But net, that's a positive, not a negative.
Okay, next question. So you've maintained a commitment to United Way, both in terms of volunteer leadership and giving, for example.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yes.
You previously mentioned that 30% of the population was going to be in those 3 states, and I was wondering what your thoughts on were for the Northeast and the more densely populated areas like the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area and New York City. Is that going to have a negative effect on growth for up there?
You know, I didn't bring the list, but you can go out on the website and you can see the various, if I remember right, I think they're out on the website, the various metropolitan areas and the projections. If I remember right, California, Texas, then I think New York, then I think Florida is 4, and then it comes on down from there are the largest states. But according to those projections, and I won't rule out every state across the north, but the fastest growth is going to be in the south.
Okay.
That answer your question? I don't know the effect on New York and where it is. I just wasn't looking at that.
Were you asking if Comerica had plans to expand into other markets?
Not necessarily Comerica, but if just the nation as a whole, if all the growth is moving to one part of the country, I was just concerned on, that means something else is going to happen to the other part of the country, usually. And I was just wondering on if you had any research on how big of a negative impact that would have on the more established areas right now that aren't part of Texas, California, New York, or Florida.
I don't, because I really wasn't looking at that. It doesn't mean that there won't be growth in the north in selected locations. But I don't know that because I just haven't researched that. I was really focused on where we are today. And does it make sense for us to make this decision? And is the diversity of the economy such that it will be long-term? And that's driven in one way by population growth. And that clearly is, everybody believes, is going to be where the growth is. And it sure is tracking today the large growth. And so that's the decision I was really looking at.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Next question.
Does Comerica plan to keep the intangible assets in Detroit, such as the naming rights to Comerica Park, or is it going to sell them and concentrate on promoting Comerica in its new high-growth markets?
We intend to keep Comerica Park.
Especially this year.
And that is part of being involved. It's part of being in the community. The Detroit Tigers is a very important part of the community, as is the football team and the hockey team and the basketball team and the sports teams, which sports teams for us is a line of business as well. And we are involved with sports teams throughout our markets. You will see our sign in various places, whether it be on a Zamboni machine or whether it be in, as I was saying earlier, on Sports Illustrated, where Kobe takes a shot, there happens to be Comerica right under his feet, which was a great picture, and I couldn't have asked for it better if I would have wanted the marketing. It's part of being involved. We are very happy to be involved with the Detroit Tigers.
Thank you.
Yeah. All the questions are coming from one side of the room.
We have one way in the back, too.
My question was about your employees. When you're moving 200 jobs from Michigan to Texas, what kind of conversations did you have with your employees? Because that would be a big decision for me to move from one side of North America to the other, or the United States to the other. So what kind of ways did you approach that with your employees, and then also with the government in Detroit, like city council?
Well, when we, let me back up just a little bit. One of the things that we did is the night before the announcement, we had a senior officer meeting, which we routinely have periodically, and it was planned so that it was the night before. After 4 o'clock and after the market closed, we talked with our senior people so that they were prepared, and we had kits for everyone so that they understood the thought process, and they understood that we weren't leaving Michigan, that we were still very dedicated to Michigan, who the team was going to be, and so that they could answer questions the next morning, whether they were questions that came into the call center, whether they were questions that of one of our customers walking into one of our banking centers or one of our corporate customers. So, and they had the opportunity to ask any questions they wanted during that meeting so that they were prepared for that. Same thing was true with the communication of the business, to the business leaders, and it couldn't be done until obviously after the announcement, and we communicated and talked, and as people understood why we were doing it, even though it was a difficult decision and difficult to understand in some cases, people understood that we were doing it for the long-term growth of the corporation. And once they understood we're not abandoning that market, that it was still very important to us, and that we were going to be very involved in it going forward, then I think people understood it. It was a difficult decision and a difficult communication.
Related to that, was there a public announcement in Detroit simultaneous with the public announcement in Dallas?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a national, because it is a significant event,
Right.
and therefore you have to accordingly announce it to the whole market.
Right.
Right, before they open a market the next day.
Okay.
Simple question. What kind of decisions does the CEO of a bank make on a day-to-day basis?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that. I mean,
You better come up with some now.
the decisions can go from very small decisions to very strategic decisions. And, the most important thing is strategy, longer term with your management team, and then execution, and making sure that people have access as we're pursuing those strategies, because there's always things that come up that needs to be decided on and moved forward. You are kind of the last person that it comes up to when there's discussions or disagreements and so forth. And so it's different every day, and that's part of the interesting part of the job. And when you have a great team to work with, it's fun to come to work every day, and I talk about the culture that I was talking about earlier. It is, as I said in one article, it is partly my hobby as well, because I don't have any hobbies other than I play a little bit of golf. Not well, but I play golf. And that's important, that you enjoy your job and you enjoy the people you work with, because you want to feel good about going to work the next day. And as I said in the group earlier, when I met with them, you want to balance yourself too. You will be a better employee, associate, if you balance your life with the things that are most important to you outside of the particular position that you have, and make sure that you do that. It goes quickly. Yeah.
Good. We have a question way up top, I know.
Yes.
Here, we'll go.
In the beginning of your lecture, you said that banks rarely move their headquarters, and I'm kind of curious why.
I'm sorry?
You said that banks rarely move their headquarters to
That's
a different
right.
state. I'm curious as to why.
Well, you'd have to ask the other institutions. But what I would say is the way the laws developed over time, banks became significant in the communities where they were. Then all of a sudden the laws changed, and you were able to begin to buy institutions outside of the markets where you were and branch to the outside of markets where you were. And in many cases, the strategies that some have, that works very well. In our case, because of where those markets were and the way we build our relationships and the fact that we needed to accelerate that growth, that became a logical step for us.
Wouldn't it also be logical for a lot of other banks, especially since the laws changed for everyone? I mean,
I'm sure
based on their location.
I'm sure they consider it. You know, there was a merger years ago between Norwest bought Wells Fargo, and Norwest was in Minneapolis, and they were, if I remember correctly, they were the acquirer, but they moved their headquarters to San Francisco, and they've been quite successful when you look at it. And as I mentioned earlier, it's very important to be in that high growth market, but you need to have been there too. And if you think back on what I said, we've been there for 20 years, and all of a sudden those markets are over 50%, and they're growing faster than our home market, significantly faster. And so it was the right step for us, but each institution would have to look at that from their own perspective and does it make sense for them.
Good. Next question.
Does Comerica expect any savings on state income tax from moving from Michigan to Texas? If so, how much? And did that play, into the decision to move from one state to another?
Well, actually, if you think about things of moving, we're moving 200 people. We moved our charter from a Michigan State Bank charter to a Texas State Bank charter. We were already doing business there. And if you look at the way taxing is done throughout the country, and I don't have the specific numbers for you, but you pay taxes based on where you are and where you create the business. It's kind of a short way to put it. That's not totally true. But so that was not a major factor in the decision.
Related to that, you mentioned Texas being a business-friendly environment. What are the 3 or 4 factors that are most important for a state if it intends to be business-friendly?
Well, every state is different, and let me tell you what I mean by that. One is you just asked the question about taxes. So taxes sure can play a role overall, but there are states that are fast-growing that have higher tax bases but are still fast-growing. So if they have the right offsets, whether it be sunshine or they're the stepping stone to Asia, as an example, or they have large diversity of businesses, it doesn't become as much of a negative. It depends on what you have in total to offer, and that's what's important. When I visited Rick Perry, who's the governor, as we were thinking about the process, I went down to see him, and I don't remember exactly, but it had to be one of the first statements that he made is we're business friendly. We want to provide an atmosphere to attract businesses to Texas. And they are very focused on that, as are other states, as to what that means. Affordability of housing, roads, you have to think about everything from an infrastructure standpoint. And there's no one thing that really
But
really
you're really talking about the state in terms of the mix of businesses, the growth rates, more so than tax abatement or relocation incentives or factors like that.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
That was not the major reason.
Yeah, and even when you define business friendly, it seems that those factors would be further down the list. Corporate
right.
tax rates?
Well, as long as they're competitive,
Okay.
and that is important that they be competitive from that standpoint, and that's part of it. But it's affordability of real estate, it's location, it's how much in growth. In our case, it was businesses. When I mentioned 10,000 headquarters in Dallas, it's a very vibrant market, as is Houston, as is Austin, and it's going to continue to be based on our forward-looking projections. And the diversification of that market today is going to be very resilient to downturns. unlike what it was in the late 80s, and what we are working on in Michigan to move it forward so that we have the diversification there too as we go into cycles, but it takes time. And what you really have to do is take almost a blank sheet of paper and say, what are the strengths of my state, whatever state it is, and what do I have to do to attract? And it may be lower taxes, or it may be, it may be logistics. It could be a lot of different things. It could be location. It could be weather. It could be ability to attract technology, education, healthcare. Michigan is very strong in the education side, the healthcare side, in technology. And there's a lot of very solid, very good businesses. The auto industry is going through some restructuring at this point in time. They're great corporate citizens, very involved in the communities, and very important to the long-term success of Michigan. But we need to think about what attracts others to diversify as well, just like Texas did and just like California did.
We have time for one or two other questions. Any more? Yep.
Let me ask one a little more fundamental. Your bank primarily specializes in middle market companies and their owners. And in order to grow, you have to grow with the market, but get your fair share of new business. What are the fundamental strategies that enable you to do that better than all the other banks that are many focused on the same customers that you are as you move forward? What is it that distinguishes Comerica that makes you successful in gaining, say, market share versus other banks that would like to serve the same customers that you're looking after?
It goes back to relationships, and it's long-term people that are the relationship contacts, and it is multiple layers of people. While we have a strength in the middle market, we also service some of the largest companies in the country, and we are agile because of the things that I described earlier. People need institutions that can move quickly, that want long-term relationships, that want to know them, and they know we're going to be there when they call. And that's the differentiator. That's that community bank atmosphere that I was talking about earlier. But we're large enough to have all the products and services that we want to compete. And we use an open architecture. So if we don't have a product, that doesn't mean we need to manufacture it. And as an example, I have a credit card in my pocket. It says Comerica Bank. But we don't have a credit card operation. I mentioned we're going to be the debit card for the Social Security going forward. We competed with a lot of banks for that. And we also teamed up with another very important company, happens to be in Dallas, that teams with us to provide that card, which is really the back room and the technology side of that. So it's being smart and looking for it. It's having big customers that we have to provide a level of customer products that are competitive, yet we can take them down and be competitive with the larger institutions, but also we're very competitive when it comes to competing against the community-type banks.
Very good.
But it goes back to relationships is really where it's at.
Excellent. Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, before everybody departs, I want to thank a number of people who have provided valuable assistance for the Distinguished Alumni Lecture today. In particular, I want to thank very much Tom O'Neill, Laura Harris, Sharon Reed from our Advancement Office. We always appreciate the great work from the Academic Support Center for handling our audiovisual needs, and our photographer, L.G. Patterson from Recess, Inc. So, Mr. Babb, I've got a couple things. We want to say thank you to you. Let's see here. Mr. Babb doesn't quite have everything up in his office from the move, is that right? So he's got a few Missouri things, but he just has to find them. Well, now you have something new. We have a plaque that says Robert J. Trulaske, Sr., College of Business, University of Missouri, in appreciation to Ralph W. Babb Jr., Distinguished Alumni Lecture, February 28, 2008. There you go. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. And we know you have a gold sweater, so that's good. So we'd like you to have a little bit more apparel, both from our college and also from the university. So a gift bag for you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.